staring into the window of Bairee's mind.
On the one hand, is really genuinely startled and bewildered by some of the things you see happening. And it looks as if you're actually being dumb to be startled by it. But actually what's happening is that in some ways you're actually seeing it slightly more clearly, if you like.
Is it because you see not only the object but the particles that make up the object? Would that be
Well, in
that
a way,
sort of-
the thing is, I was absolutely astonished by light switches. Because, you look at that light switch over there, and it's just it's 4 square inches on the wall, and when you push it, the light goes on. But what's behind that is a wire that goes from there. Not just the wire doesn't just go from there, around the wall up to the light. It goes all the way to the nearest power station, and you've got these huge, great turbines, whether it's gas or nuclear power, churning out this stuff connected to a wire that allows that to turn on that. So to me, light switches are completely astonishing things. But on the other hand, if you say, oh my God, it's a light switch, people think, well, yes, it's a light switch.
It's interesting that some people find science so easy and others find it kind of dull and difficult. Especially kids, some of them are just eat it up. And I don't know why it is. It's the same perhaps for all subjects. For instance, lots of people love music and I never could carry a tune. And I lose a great deal of pleasure out of that. And I think people lose a lot of pleasure who find science dull. In the case of science, you think that one of the things that make it very difficult is it takes a lot of imagination. It's very hard to imagine all the crazy things that things really are like. Nothing's really as it seems. We're used to get, hot and cold and all that. Hot and cold is the speeds that the atoms are jiggling. If they jiggle more, it corresponds to hotter. And colder is jiggling less. So if you have a bunch of atoms, a cup of coffee or something sitting on a table, and the atoms are jiggling a great deal in the coffee, they bounce against the cup, and the cup then gets shaken. The atoms in the cup shake, and they bounce against the saucer, and the heat heats the cup, it heats everything else. And hot thing spreads its heat into other things by mere contact, because the atoms that are jiggling a lot in the hot thing shake the ones that are jiggling only a little bit in the cold thing, so that the hot heat, we say, goes into the cold thing, it spreads. But what's spreading is just jiggle and irregular motions, which is easy to try to understand.
I'm feeling kinda fine. I'm rolling with my shorty all the time. Wine and grind up, shake your behind. Bring them in, we bring it into my mind. But whether or not, the weather's hot or the weather's cold, I'm gonna like it.
Because I think I'm kind of alive to the fact that life continually throws very, very strange and unexpected things at us that a very short while later you fitted into your mental landscape and have forgotten how strange it was when you first came across it. And I've noticed that generally if I have to explain something to somebody, I'm usually quite good at it because I can remember what it was like not to understand it and how strange and bewildering it looks. And most people, when they have to explain something complicated, because it seems very simple and obvious from their standpoint, don't actually explain it properly in terms that somebody to whom this is all new will necessarily understand, because what you've forgotten is how strange it was to you to begin with.
Do you accept the inexplicable moments of, say, synchronicity or telepathy?
No, to be honest. I mean, I'm actually, if you like, an extreme rationalist. I'm a Dawkinsist. And what fascinates me is that from profoundly simple principles, from almost tautologically simple principles, the universe has erupted into the most extraordinary, complex, rich thing imaginable. I mean, words fail one trying to describe the complexity of the universe. But to my mind, it is much, much more intellectually and emotionally thrilling understanding or having some glimpse of the way in which extraordinary simplicity has naturally given rise to this extraordinary complexity. That is a thrilling and extraordinary process. And saying, oh, well, it's because we have complexity, therefore there must be a very complex reason for it, or there must be something mystical, or me to be a very unsatisfactory explanation for that. So I feel intensely romantic, if you like, about logical explanations.
I have a friend who's an artist, and he's sometimes taken a view which I don't agree with very well. He'll hold up a flower and say, look how beautiful it is. And I'll agree, I think. And he says, you see, as I as an artist can see how beautiful this is, but you as a scientist, take this all apart and it becomes a dull thing. And I think that he's kind of nutty. First of all, the beauty that he sees is available to other people and to me too. I believe, although I may not be quite as refined as aesthetically as he is, that I can appreciate the beauty of the flower. At the same time, I see much more about the flower than he sees. I could imagine the cells in there, the complicated actions inside, which also have a beauty. I mean, it's not just beauty at this dimension of 1 centimeter, there's also beauty at a smaller dimensions. The inner structure, also the processes, the fact that the colors and the flower evolved in order to attract insects to pollinate it is interesting. It means that insects can see the color. It adds a question. Does this aesthetic sense also exist in the lower forms? Why is it aesthetic? All kinds of interesting questions which the science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery, and the awe of a flower. It only adds. I don't understand how it subtracts.
Bairee's mind.
Thanks for listening.